morning. It's Friday, August 28th. It's Friday, so I'm on my way to Starbucks. That's my treat on Fridays. I'm vlogging today because, as you know, I don't necessarily know that I'll be vlogging weekly vlogs every Sunday. They'll just kind of occur as I think something is worth sharing and or as I have time to. So today's vlog is more so because I think it's important. Because today, this year, my commitment as a teacher of social studies and history is to be more purposeful in deciphering between the two in my teaching and just in my thought process. And, really just because of the things that have been happening in the country over the past several months, I just think it's important for me as an individual and important for my students. And so today is going to be kind of like the kickoff of like the history portion of my teaching. We've done a little bit of social studies. I've started the process of kicking off a activist or civic engagement project, and I'll talk a little bit about that today on Instagram, so you'll want to check those out on my Insta stories. Hopefully I get that done. But today's vlog is really just going to focus on the history lesson that I'm teaching, or the intro into the history lessons to come. And I will say this is one of those lessons where I have to tell myself, okay, you just got to do this. You just got to be brave. Don't worry about it. You know that what you're doing is right. And it's not, to me, it's not bad, but I know that there's people that are super sensitive and unaware of what's important and unaware of what our shortcomings have been in education that has led to some of the things that we've been seeing recently. So I'm going to kick off history today, and we're going to talk about the concept of race. And the way that I'm framing it is that I teach 8th grade history in California is focused on U.S. history, pretty much from early America, colonial America, through World War I. But my goal is we never get there. Last year I didn't even get anywhere near talking about World War I. But I definitely want to try and get there this year, and definitely want to try and get through the Civil War, Reconstruction period, and all of that. And so I'm letting the kids know that that's the broad spectrum of where we should end up by the end of the year. And in American history, as is the case with many other countries, a lot of our history and a lot of the battles and struggles we've had have been somehow tied to race, culture, and power struggles between different groups of people in the name of gaining power, gaining wealth, gaining land, whatever the case may be. And so because of that, I want us to first talk about just the concept of race. Where did that even come from? What is it? How do we identify ourselves? And things like that. So because this is a virtual environment and I don't know who's at home with the kids, I know that I'm putting myself out there in the sense that at any given moment there's any kind of adult walking around that may feel like what I'm teaching or the path that I'm choosing to teach U.S. history in is not something they want to hear, or is too controversial, or the kids can't handle it. And so in that regard, that's why I feel like I have to suck it up and be a little brave, because I'm putting myself out there. I know that when I was in school learning U.S. history, this was never a conversation that I had. We never talked about the concept of race. We never talked about where it came from. We never talked about why it existed. We never asked each other what race we identify with and why. So I'm going to use myself as an example to kick off that conversation. And even when I think about why I define myself as that, the truth is, it's because that's what I've been told I am. I identify myself as Black because that's what I've been told by my family, by society, by the media. And when you really think about it, that's where I learned to identify myself from. And in that, where did that even come from? We got to learn that race is something that was invented, the way that we use it now anyway. So I wanted to share that process so that you guys can see me putting myself out there and being honest and telling you that I'm a little nervous for my own self, in the hopes that will encourage you to kind of take some steps like that if it's something that you've wanted to do but maybe have just been a little too scared to put yourself out there and or try it. So that's gonna be the purpose of this vlog. Let me get this mask on so I can go pick up my drink and get the day started, but I will share the process with you guys. All right, it is about 8:10. It's 8:08 to be exact. I had a 5:04 meeting when I got here at 7:30. That ended, and I just am getting everything ready for my class that is going to start in about 10 minutes. So today, I've done this a couple times, but I don't do it on a regular basis. I probably should, just to kind of keep me on track. But I use planbook.com, and let me turn the camera around. There we go. These are my lesson plans for the week. It's Friday. So what I've done is I've just printed out the lesson plans, and I have it sitting in front of me. For today's lesson, that feels necessary because I want to make sure that I keep in mind like the specific order. Just trying to get you guys straight. The specific order that I want things to go through, or that I want to take things through, just to make sure it's logical and it flows. So the first thing that I'm going to do, like I said on the way to Starbucks, is I'm going to kick off the conversation by using a Jamboard. I don't even know why I just put you guys down, because I'm gonna have to pick you right back up. So I'm gonna start it off by using a Jamboard, which I have already made here. So I'm gonna start off with this Jamboard here. And I initially was just going to put this question on there and then have them use their little post-it notes to respond, but I wanted a graphic just to make it look more visually appealing. And then I found this, which I thought was a very interesting thing to have to kind of get their minds started and to kind of lead them in the direction of the information I'm going to give them. So this was a cover issue of the National Geographic, excuse me. And if you can't see it, basically these two girls are twin sisters, and the premise is, it just says, black and white, these twin sisters make us rethink everything we know about race, because a lot of people wouldn't assume that they're twin sisters because they look very different. This girl could easily, at quick glance, be mistaken as white. And even if not that, just like their appearance is pretty significantly different. So I'm gonna have that there just to kind of get their minds going, just to have a visual. And then they're gonna answer here using little sticky notes. I'm going to model first and put down my definition, or what I identify as and why, and be very honest about where that definition comes from. So we're gonna start there, and then the next thing I'm going to do is kind of give them that little talk about American history, where we're going, and that race has been an issue throughout the course of history for different reasons, primarily for struggles of power. And then I found this video on YouTube which talks about the origins of race in America.
You know that race was not always considered a biological or genetic category, so
I'm gonna show them that. It's about 10 minutes long. It's very informative, but it's probably made for older people, but the information that it contains is really good. And then after that, we're going to kind of talk through that video using something that's a little bit more scaled down, and that is a read and respond activity that I found on Flocabulary. So I'm going to show them this video, but first I'm going to do this read and respond activity, because these little blurbs that they are going to read and then respond to reiterate what is being said in the YouTube video, but in a more, I don't like saying kid-friendly because they're not like little kids, but kid-friendly way, really. It's just easier to digest. So we're going to go through this together. We're going to read it out loud. We're going to select answers together. Normally, I project this on my screen. I call a student out, have them answer the question once I read this. So we're going to do that. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to watch this video. So this video talks about race, but this video, I really like it because it really focuses on like some of the stereotyping that is associated with people, or that we all have when we see people of a certain race. Let's see. I don't know how much I can share.
24 years old, but I'm bringing it back to my school days for a second.
So just for copyright issues, just to be safe, like I think there's a total of four 4 rappers. This first one, he's Japanese, and he starts off by talking about how people probably assume like, oh, you must be really good at math, you must be very academic, but then he goes on to talk about, I actually like music and rapping, and yeah, I might be good at math, but you know, that's a stereotype and that's not all of who I am. Then you go on to this girl here. She's biracial. Some of what she talks about are some statements she's had directed at her in the past, like, oh, you're pretty for a black girl, or what are you? She touches on that. Then the next person, I think her name is Blimes. This is a white female, and she talks about, you know, even though, you know, she's a white female, you don't typically associate that with someone that's really into hip hop music, urban music, and then she goes into that. And then the last guy, I forget, I don't know if it shows what his name is. I can't remember what his name is, but basically his thing is like he wants to be defined more by than just his race, like what he physically looks like. So we're gonna do that together, or watch that together, and then as their independent practice, I always show them what their independent practice is on this little sticky note. They're gonna take the quiz on that video. Something simple, easy, and light, but you know, still holding them accountable. So that's how I plan to kind of introduce the concept of it. The very first lesson that we're gonna have, like the more like hardcore lesson in history after this, is we're gonna jump into colonial life, agricultural trade, and kind of start talking about the Atlantic slave trade. So they kind of need this information first to kind of conceptualize how the Atlantic slave trade even came to be. Like, how was it decided that this is the group of people that we're going to enslave for the purposes that we see fit? So that's the plan for Monday, so I kind of want us to get prepared for that. If there's time left, I don't think there will be with my homeroom class, then we'll continue some of the Nearpod activity that focuses more on civic engagement and activism, and then that's really it. That's all I really think I'm gonna have time for. So I start class in 5 minutes, but I just have this in front of me because I really wanna make sure that I get everything set up. In case you haven't seen in the other videos, I am continuing to use 2 monitors. So my desktop is the one that I use to project and really function off of primarily, and then this one just allows me to see the students that are not on my main screen. Like, just gives me a view of multiple students that I wouldn't have if I didn't have that second screen. So that is the plan. I will let you know how it goes. I will try and get some footage of it as I'm going through it. But I'm nervously excited. I'm looking forward to it more than anything, so I'll keep you posted. So just like with any country, U.S. history is complicated. There are things that are great and that we celebrate. There are some bumps in the road. There are some mistakes that have been made. There have been wars. There have been struggles. So with history, a lot of times in different countries, including the United States, the struggle for power is usually related to land, money. Eventually you get to the point where it's based on like political issues that people disagree on, and just general struggles of power. And a lot of times those struggles of power are based on classifying people in different groups, whether it's a struggle for gender equality with women, whether it's a struggle with Native Americans, whether it's a struggle for enslaved Africans, whether it's a struggle for Irish immigrants. It all has something to do with like just balances of power. And so for us to kind of conceptualize or understand why some things have happened the way that they have in US history, it's important for us to first talk about where even the concept of things like race came from. Like, what is that? Where did that come from? Has that always been something that has been a part of American culture and other cultures? Because all cultures identify people based on race. So we're gonna start off talking about that, and I'm just gonna ask you a very broad question. And the first thing I want you to do is you're gonna go to Google Classroom, and when you get there, let me let that student in. You should see under Friday, I almost forgot what day it is. Under Friday, you're gonna click on the one that says the origin of race in the USA, and I forget what the rest of it says. But right now, you just need to click on this Jamboard. So you're gonna open up the Jamboard, As always, remember that you are an editor of this Jamboard. I am an editor of this Jamboard, so we need to be very careful about what we're touching and what we're moving. You shouldn't be moving this, you shouldn't be moving that, okay? So, the first thing I want you to do is, and I'm gonna participate in this also, I'm gonna answer this question as well. I want you to take a moment and stop and think to yourself and ask yourself these two questions. What is race? And what race do you identify as and why? Okay, so for me, if someone were to ask me this question, and I've taken a class where I was asked this question before, when someone asked me what is race, I really didn't have a very defined answer. I really didn't know. So the way that I answered it is I said it is a way to classify people based on culture. That's just what I thought. So that's what I said. So I'm gonna type that. It is a way to classify people based on culture, and I think I said ethnicity. I didn't know if I was right or I was wrong, but that was the first thing that came to mind. If someone asked me what race do I identify as, I've talked about this a little already. I identify myself as African American or Black. I prefer the term Black, so I would say I identify as Black. And why I do, when I thought about this, when I was planning this, I don't really know why. I know that I identify as Black because that is what I've been told I am by my family. That is what I have been told I am. And that is what I perceive myself to be, okay? If I can type. Oh, there we go. So I want you to think about that. There really is no right or wrong answer. There really isn't. This is just a conversation to get started on, like, what do you identify as, and what do you identify as, and how did you get to that point? Or have you ever really thought about what race is and what it means to you, or what it means when people talk about that? So I want you to take a moment to think to yourself. You're gonna respond on the Jamboard. You're gonna put your first name on it so that you can get credit for participating. Again, like I told my last class, this is based on your perception, not what other people think. Like, just what do you identify as? And we're gonna respect each other's thoughts and opinions. Okay, that your race is your culture and ethnicity. I am Mexican and Spanish. I am because that is, I think, what my parents told me, and they did one of those DNA tests. I would say that race is a way to identify yourself by your culture. I identify myself as white. It says race is what the person's culture is. I am Colombian, and I identify myself as that because my mom is Colombian. This one says race is what most people classify each other as, like Mexican, Caucasian, and Black. The race I identify as is Black. I call myself Black because it is what I usually hear people like me call themselves. That is true. Race for me is a group of people who has the same culture. I identify from my family as Mexican and Asians. So a lot of us, as you can see, a lot of us get our concept of who we are based on our family experience, our family's cultural practices. Maybe that's just what you've been told. Maybe you've had a lot of conversation about it. Maybe you haven't. So what I'm gonna show you now is a video. It's about 10 minutes long. And it's like a historical video, and it's gonna give you historically where this concept of race came from. And it might be kind of surprising to you, because I know the first time I watched it, I was pretty surprised. So I'm gonna show you the video first. I'm gonna warn you, it is kind of like, there might be parts that are a little bit above our heads and a little bit difficult to understand. But after that, we're gonna do a vocabulary activity that kind of breaks everything down and kind of reiterates what the video says, just in a more friendly way for us to understand, okay? So if you haven't had a chance to post on the Jamboard, go ahead and do that. The rest of you, just watch my screen. I am going to share it. You don't need to open this from Google Classroom because I'm gonna play it for you. It's just there for you if you wanted to watch it later, okay? All right, I'm getting ready to start my switch class, the second half. We have 2 hours together on Fridays, and this hour is going to be devoted to the lesson on race, so we're gonna see how it goes. My first one was okay. I think I honestly was just a little bit nervous going through it because I wanted to make sure I was saying things the right way. But all in all, I got through what I wanted to, so that's good. But I think this one will be better just because I've done it once and like the anxiety of it is gone. My mistake is I didn't use the bathroom during my break, and I should have. So, I don't know. Welcome back, welcome back. Let's give everybody a minute or two to get in here. Did you guys have a good break? Where were you? Were you tired? I didn't see you the last one.
I think I fell asleep.
I think you did too, because I called your name a couple times and you just were not there. Are you wide awake now? You look like you just woke up. Did you wake up? Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Miss Lynn. Good morning.
You guys are so precious, so precious.
Aw, good morning, guys. Thank you.
Okay, almost there. I'm gonna start talking. Okay, everybody, let's take a deep breath in. Exhale. Okay. Before we get started with today's lesson, I'm gonna have a moment of honesty and vulnerability with you guys as a teacher. So you guys know one of the things that you picked up on in, I think on the first day of school is you guys said something along the lines of like, we can tell you're into social justice, equality for all people, blah, 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 which is very true. And it's also one of the reasons why I really enjoy teaching 8th grade history, because it's about U.S. history and I just find it very fascinating. And there is a lot in U.S. history that kind of touches on things and concepts like social justice and all of that. And next week, we're gonna really start history instruction. We're gonna start talking about colonial America. We're gonna kind of start at right around where slavery is starting to become very prevalent in early America. And then we're gonna go forward. Like the goal is in 8th grade that we start there and eventually get all the way through to World War II, okay? So a wide span of time is what we're supposed to get through. Now, before I talk about colonial America and the expansion of the slave trade and all of that, I do think as a teacher, it's important to first talk about like the concept of race and where that even came from. Because U.S. history, as is the case with history in a lot of different countries, involves just a series of power struggles. People are either struggling to gain land, property, money, wealth, and all of it is always usually between different groups of people. And one group at some point feels that they are entitled to something more than another group, and we have to figure out where those concepts came from or how the groups even came to exist. So that before we get into that, I really want us to talk about like the concept of race. What is race? Has race always existed? If not, where did it come from? And for me, the moment of vulnerability that I'm sharing as a teacher, that's a very scary topic to talk about, because if you guys don't know me well enough or your parents don't know me well enough, you may misinterpret things, you may make assumptions about why I'm teaching certain things. So I just want to be very clear, like if you know me, you know that I'm very proud of who I am, and just as proud as who I am, I want you guys to be as proud of who you are. And all groups of people, we are more alike than we are different, but we all have our own experiences, and our experiences shape who we are, and our experiences shape our perception of the good and the bad decisions that this country has made. And so sometimes we'll get into conversations that are uncomfortable or awkward, or you may feel like people that look like you are being portrayed in a way that you don't like, but just know that I know that that's not you. So I don't think that what these people did are indicative of you because you happen to look like these people, and I would hope that you would do the same for me. So I think it's important for me to teach these things because I want to teach real history, true history, but I know not all teachers are comfortable doing that because it does get like a little dicey at certain points. So I hope you guys always remember that, even when you have moments where you're like, I feel a little uncomfortable, I don't know what to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing. That's why I want you guys to know that this is always going to be a safe space. I feel like you guys get that. We've already had some really good conversations in the past couple of days that have been very fulfilling for me. So I don't have a lot of worry, but I just want to make sure I make that very clear. So today we're going to talk about race. Like, what is race? Where did that come from? Are there really races? Are they real? Why do they exist? Next, race is not biological. In other words, there is nothing in our cells that leads to our race. There is no gene that distinguishes all members of one race from all members of another race. In fact, 99.9% of your DNA is exactly the same as anybody else's, regardless of what you look like. That means that human beings don't have enough genetic difference to qualify as having different subspecies or races. Despite the differences on the surface, we are far more alike biologically than we are different. To look at it another way, think about this. The genes for skin color, eye color, hair texture, eye shape, and so on are not inherited together. They are all separate traits that can come in many combinations. And each of these traits is rarely determined by only one genetic factor, but rather by many different genes acting together. Also, many different genetic variations can cause the same trait. For example, there are several different genetic variations that make a person's skin light. So 2 people might have light skin because of completely different genes. The question says, the genes that determine what people look like can best be compared to what? A, puzzle pieces that can only fit together one way. B, chemicals that only mix with certain other chemicals. C, building blocks that can be put together in different ways. Or D, molds that create identical objects every time they're used. Any volunteers? You guys are dead today. Let's ask. So what do you think the answer is? It's after 1:30. I've just finished for the day. My last class on Friday is called Hawk Academy, which is like we call it universal access, but it's like small groups where you're working with students who have similar needs. And so one tip that I learned from one of my colleagues here, you know, if you have to run small groups, she came up with the idea, or like, even if you're not running small groups and some kids are working on one thing and other kids are working on something else and you kind of need to be in 2 places at the same time, is she created breakout rooms and was able to kind of visually see what kids were doing in one breakout room versus kids in another breakout room, which is really just your main screen. So I only do this when I need 2 groups running. So in the small group I was in, I had a group of students who were working on a study sync assignment that they needed to get done, but then I had a couple of kids who also needed to get that study sync assignment done, but had not heard the story The Monkey's Paw to even do the assignment. So I put the kids that were working on the assignment in one breakout room. I let them know that I can see you, I'm watching you, you'll be able to see me. I'm just gonna put you there so that you're not distracted by the audio of the story. And then the kids that needed to see The Monkey's Paw, I was working with here and played the audio through my desktop computer. So I just thought I would give you that little tech tip. When I finish eating lunch, because I'm starving right now, and when I have myself settled a little bit from the day, I'll share with you how the lesson went and how I feel about things. And my battery's dying, so I gotta conserve it. So I'll talk to you later about it. Okay, it is almost 7 o'clock at night. And I'm still in my classroom. I had a lot of things that I needed to do. I got the grading done. That was the bulk of what I needed to do. There was just a lot of grading that needed to be done because I've just been busy and I've had meetings every day this week. Some days I've had 2, and I just got off of a meeting right now, which is why I'm still here. But I'm going to kind of just debrief, excuse me, how things went. I'm talking fast because I'm panicking that I'm going to run out of battery. But I got a few clips of me teaching the lesson, and all in all, I would say that the lessons went well. I think it was definitely difficult for the kids to understand excuse me, the idea that race is like a social construct and really to understand what that means. It was hard for them to even fathom that a person's race is just something that we kind of invented, and that you can't just assume that biology determines race. So it was kind of hard for them. The Flocabulary activity definitely helped them understand things, and all in all, I feel like they handled it really well. I feel like we did a good job setting the stage for the history that we are going to start learning about, and having them to really think through how some of the things that we perceive and know to be just like atrocious decisions, how those decisions even came to be, and how they existed and lasted for so long. And one of my students even asked that. I did ask the aide that joins my class afterwards how she felt about it, because if I was to be totally honest, as a black woman, as a black person period, teaching in a conservative district, you get really nervous teaching this kind of stuff because you don't want anyone to think that you have an agenda. And that in and of itself is interesting, because I don't get uncomfortable teaching, you know, other kinds of history, anything that remotely deals with race and oppression and things like that, and those kinds of concepts. It makes me a little nervous that kids are hearing things or perceiving things in the wrong way. So I asked her, I don't know her very well, but I did ask her, as a white female in America, was the way that I presented it, did it feel neutral to you? Did it feel informative and not like I'm trying to like push any sort of agenda that you couldn't really tell what my thoughts and beliefs were just politically or whatever? I don't really know what my fear is, but I have it. And she said, no, it felt very neutral. So that was good. So I'm gonna show you really quick. So we just started the day like I told you we would. I asked them to identify what race they were and how they came to that determination, and they just did it on a Jamboard. It worked out really well. I actually need to save this as a PDF so that they can still view it. So this was my homeroom class. I showed them that image, and then they all put their little thoughts up there. And no one really seemed to have any issue with that, you know what I mean? So that went well. Then I showed them the race video from the YouTube channel that I had found that on, and it was kind of over their heads. And then we did the Flocabulary activity, had them answer questions, and all in all, it went pretty smoothly. I think I said in an earlier clip, I was definitely nervous the first time around just because I want to say things just so. By the second time, I felt a little bit more at ease and a little less uncomfortable, and I think going forward I'll feel better, because I had the aide confirm that it felt like you were just educating and giving information. And I have parents in recent years, and even though we've touched on like touchy subjects, they've always appreciated it, and these are parents from a variety of racial and ethnic backgrounds. So I would just keep doing what I'm doing, and I think I'll be fine. But my point is, like, for those of you that feel like this comes easy for me, or this is something that I don't worry about, I just want to show that I do worry about it. It does make me nervous. And Megan from Too Cool for Middle School and I, and Serena from Little Upbeat Class, and Stacy from the Donut Loving Teacher, hopefully when COVID slows down or goes away, we'll do our Brave Teaching Conference. And this is a good example of me just having to like suck it up and be brave, because this is the right thing for me to do for my students. So I'm gonna end this really fast. I don't know, I think this is gonna be a short vlog because I only captured a day, and there were stretches of time that I wasn't vlogging. But if you found this helpful, if you found it encouraging, if it gives you the push that you need to maybe try a lesson you're nervous about, please give this video a thumbs up, like it, leave a comment. If you're not subscribed, please make sure you do that. And if you're not following me on Instagram, go over there, because I'm about to share something else in terms of civic engagement on my Insta story. So I will see you guys in the next vlog, whenever that is. Until then, be well, and I'll talk to you soon.